Live. How is everyone? Is everybody joining? I see some people tuning in. Go here so you can see. Let's see who's joining us today. We're doing embroidery in the hoop today. All right. Just trying to find my feed and we'll get ready to rumble.
No.
I see we have some people joining us. I just can't find the feed right now, guys. I will be right there. All right. I'm glad you can hear me. Hi, Rayanne and Jane and Robin and Karen. I'm so glad you're here. I have the wrong season up on my pretty screen here, but we'll still learn some great stuff. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to switch so you can see what's going on here. All right, well, let me know how you're doing. Tell us where you're in from. Karen's from Vancouver. And Linda's back from New York. How you doing? All right, well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us here at Bernina, Canada Live. By customer demand, we're tackling a really fun topic today. It's quilting in the hoop. And today we'll learn what it really means, what you need to get started, some tips and tricks to make it look really amazing. What else are we going to learn? I think that'll cover it for today. That sounds great. I got lots of samples to show you, and I wanted to let you know that it's a beautiful day here at Bernina, Canada. We've been busy like crazy getting machines to everyone, and I had to put in a little time in the warehouse this week so that I could borrow our new cameraman. Everyone say hi to Dave from the warehouse. Hi, Dave. Thanks for joining us today. Dave is very pleased, just so you know. Okay, so we have Dave, we have our topic, we're ready to go, we have everyone. We are talking about quilting in the hoop. So using your embroidery machine to create quilted looks that normally you'd have to do, send them to the long armor or practice for years to get great at making feathers and hearts. What would you put on your quilt, Dave? Leaves? Dave loves leaves. Okay, we'll put leaves on his green quilt. He loves green. So he might have to practice a long time to get great at leaves. Me too. Or I could use my embroidery machine and be great at leaves in 10 minutes. Okay. So when we talk about quilting in the hoop, what are we talking about? There's many applications you can use your embroidery machine for. Let's be specific what we're talking about today. All right. You can use your embroidery machine to actually piece, to make your blocks. And I'll just show you on our little close-up cam. So you could use it to make blocks like this, where the piecing is actually done on the embroidery machine. And each piece is laid down, stitched down. Another one is stitched on top, flipped over, stitched down and trimmed. The next one is put on and flipped over, and so on and so on and so forth. And that's a really great, accurate way to do piecing, and it's perfect every time. And then you could do some quilting on top. This is a quilted coaster from Embroidery Online, and it's called Party Coasters. So it comes in lots of different styles. You can see stuff like that. So that's one type of quilting in the hoop, or using your embroidery machine to quilt. We're not talking about this today. I wanted to be clear, so I'm showing you what we're not talking about today. Another thing you can do is actually make blocks, not by piecing, but other techniques, maybe by applique. I'm going to show you another sample. Here it comes. All right. So these blocks, although they look like fabric, they're actually done with applique. There's lots of fabric and stitches put on underneath there. And this is done in the hoop, and then only one layer, not quilted. And then it would be put together with other blocks. So here's a large one. This looks like fabric, but this is all applique and heavy stitching, applique with zigzag, all done in the embroidery hoop. But today, this is not what we're talking about. This is not going to be quilting in the hoop. We're going to talk about the actual putting together of all the layers. Cool. So we know what we're not talking about. So I'm going to go back here and talk to Dave again. Everybody send thumbs up for Dave, because they're free, and Dave loves a good thumbs up. Next time we'll get Dave to sing. Well, maybe later. Okay. We're really talking about quilting in the hoop is using the embroidery machine to quilt all the layers together and give you that great professional, amazing look. You can do it where you randomly place motifs like the fall quilt I had in the close-up there, or you can arrange your design carefully and have like a continuous edge-to-edge look. So today, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those two techniques that give us amazing results every time. All right, so let me show you a quick sample of those, and then Dave will give you the techniques, the tips that you need. No, I think Dave will just work the camera today. All right, so on this quilt here, the Leaves quilt, what we did was we hooped, we made the whole quilt top, sandwiched it with batting and backing, and then we just randomly placed the hoop and clamped it in the hoop, and then put this whole thing on the embroidery machine and quilted it. Pretty awesome. So that's quilting in the hoop that we're really talking about today. Another thing you can do is line each item up and create sort of an all across the quilt look. This is a bag that I made where we took these individual blocks and stuck them together, and it gives this edge-to-edge quilting look. You can use different designs to accomplish this look. Now, I would use open designs. You can see on the leaves, these are very simple lines. We don't want to be too heavy in embroidery. You know, this kind of design would be very, very heavy on the quilt. This was about 20,000 stitches in here, and that would be very heavy and probably look bad on the back. What we're looking for is a nice open design that's going to look amazing on the back. If you wanted to, you could print out a template of your design, something like this. It has a nice crosshairs, so I can carefully line it up and hoop it. What I would do is trim it out, and then I've put some sticky spray on the back here. Some nice sticky spray. This is 808 by Motif. It's a reusable temporary paper adhesive, and I could use this to kind of audition where I want my motifs to go. I could get a couple of them so that I could really kind of plan out my quilt with all these nice feathers. Dave would sleep really well under this quilt, I'm sure he would. And then you would know how you wanted to hoop the quilt. Now, this is not a good design for this hoop. This hoop is too small for this design. I'd have to go to the next size hoop. Okay, so you want a design that's open like this. There's lots of collections of designs, either in triple stitch. This one is triple stitch. You can see how the stitches are very thick. We've gone over them several times, or just a single run stitch. And I can show you a sample of what single run looks like. see, it looks like this. Ugh. This one is actually just a single layer of quilting, and on the back you can see it's much lighter than the leaves were. Really great look. Looks like this was sent to the long arm. Don't tell anybody you did it on your embroidery machine. Why? They'll want you to do it for you. Just do it for yourself. All right, so that's one way you can just randomly place your motifs, keep moving your hoop around, and change your thread colors, whatever you like. The other thing you can do is do a consistent design and where they fit together. So you need to find a design that actually goes together. So you're going to look for something that has the name pantograph in it. This says panto feather. And then you're going to be able to use your machine to join these items together. There's actually a join right here, and it would join to the next motif down here. And it's a continuous line. There's lots of great demos on exactly how to do this, and actually Connie Fanders from Bernina USA just did a great video. I'll put the link in the comments today, and she shows you exactly how to do that. I'm going to show you on the screen how to do that as well, and I'll also show you how to hoop your quilt. All right. Yeah, so we can talk about hoops really quickly because Kate is bringing up a really good point. This is a hoop for the Bernette 70 series. It's actually, you want your hoop to be able to open very far to be able to accept the thickness of your quilt. So this hoop opens not very far enough. So you actually want to loosen this screw quite a bit. Oops, I don't know which way to do it. It's all upside down for the camera. And see how the spring in there is opening the outer hoop and it's holding it really far away. I've got lots of room all the way around the hoop now. I'd be able to accept a quilt in there. Cool. Now we have some other Bernina hoops that, what's a regular Bernina hoop looks like this. Right, a regular Bernina hoop looks like this, and same sort of thing. It's got the, all thumbs today. It's got the screw that will open, and you can open this wide enough to accept the inner hoop. This doesn't come with a spring, but there is an optional spring, like a third-party spring you can add that will hold this apart while you're hooping, which is very helpful. But my favorite way to hoop is to use some of the optional hoops at Bernina. The midi hoop maybe, or the maxi hoop, those are good. They have this spring action. This opens up really nice and wide, clamps down nicely, and just springs back open to be able to accept the quilt. Yep. Jackie says she uses this technique all the time. There's lots of designs available online. Yep, Jackie, I got mine from OESD today. They were easy to use. So yeah. Very easy. Now sometimes you might have a quilt that you don't want to hoop because it's delicate, or you got to the edge of the quilt, we're going to talk about that, and you need to use stabilizer. I'm going to show you about that. So as I said to Dave, we're really kind of frazzled today, and I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm all over the place. All right, other tips for if you're going to do quilting in the hoop. What kind of threads can I use? Well, Dave would use polyester thread because that's what he's got at home, all-purpose thread. That would work great. A lot of us quilters like to use quilting thread, and that would be perfect. That's what's being used, cotton quilting thread, on the leaf quilt, and it looks amazing. You don't need to use bobbin thread. You can put something else on the back because bobbin thread would be very fine and might not show up nicely. So I put a nice thread in the bobbin too. If you're using a thicker thread, you're going to want to have a very open design like we have with the leaves. If you had a dense design, the thread might build up a lot and look more like embroidery, not look quite as much like quilting. Depends on what look you want. Cottons give a nice matte look. It looks a little bit more traditional, and embroidery threads have a little bit more shine. So they look a little bit more sparkly and fancy, just like they. Okay. And then things to avoid, metallics. Metallic thread might not be a great one for quilting, especially if you're going to wash the quilts. Just kind of hard to, metallic threads are kind of hard to wash and put in the dryer, stuff like that. And I don't recommend rayon embroidery threads. rayon embroidery threads are beautiful, soft, and lustrous, but not very strong, and they might not hold the weight of the quilt together for years and years and years now that you've made this heirloom quilt. Another thing that you might think about for thread is that you might want to avoid the nylon plasticky threads. Sometimes they're hard to use in embroidery, so I prefer using a polyester embroidery thread or a cotton quilting thread. Cool. So now you've picked your thread, what about a needle? I would go with a quilting needle, maybe not the small one that you used for your piecing, something a little bigger to accommodate the thread. So maybe a quilting 90 needle, that's my favorite, or a top stitch needle in 90 would be great. If you don't have those in your kit, I'm sure a universal needle will work great. David recently learned how to use a twin needle. David, not today, okay? Not the twin needle. Okay, he's agreeing with that. All right, machine settings. What do you need to know about your machine? Well, there's not a lot that you need to know about changing the settings on your machine. I would suggest that if you have a machine like my 8 series, you don't want to add the extra tension on the bobbin. You don't want the top thread to be pulled to the bottom. You want the threads to lock in the middle, in the batting. So we need to have balanced tension. So if we use embroidery tension, that thread's going to be pulled to the back and it's not going to have that nice quilted look. It'll have an embroidery look, but we want a quilted look here. So what you would do is just thread your 8 series, your 830 or 880 or 880 plus, just thread it for regular sewing. Just fake out the machine, okay? Just tell it you did it for embroidery, but just do it for sewing, okay? And then if you have another series of machine that has a high tension bobbin case, the yellow bobbin case that you've been using for amazing embroidery, I would say put that away for today. Just use your regular bobbin case so you have nice tension, the threads meet in the batting, and you'll have beautiful, beautiful stitches. All right, so that's all the machine settings you need. I'm going to go over and look at this machine. There's one more. Dave, maybe we should hoop a quilt. We'll show them how to hoop a quilt. So I'm going to hoop on this hooping station. I'm lucky enough here to have a hooping station built into the desk. And I'm going to hoop my quilt sample, which is right here. So I was showing Dave this desk, and he's shipped a lot of these desks. He thinks they're great. And this desk has a hooping station built right in. So I'm going to hoop my outer hoop here. If you don't have a hooping station, you would just skip this step and not even worry. All right, I'm going to make sure my hoop is open. Then I'm going to get my quilt out. If I was just doing a random sort of quilt, good job, Dave, perfect camera work, I would just place my hoop however I wanted to, wherever I wanted that motif to go in. And I could do random motifs all down my table center, and then I could fill it in with walking foot quilting or free motion quilting or Dave's favorite technique, twin needle embroidery. We love couching. Couching would be great. So you can see I made a really big quilt sandwich. I made it really big. I gave myself lots of extra area because when I want to hoop near the edge, I've got to have somewhere to hoop to go. So you would almost prepare your quilt like you would for long arm quilting. You would almost do it that much. So that's why I have all this extra batting around here. All right, so I'm going to hoop here for this one. So I'm going to hoop on a flat surface, and I'm just going to center it for giggles today. And then I'm just going to grab everything and move it over. And now I can put it in my outer hoop, which is staying really nice and in the right place for me because it's on that hooping station. And I'm just going to clamp that shut. I missed my hoop, Dave. How embarrassing. It's only a little bit embarrassing. I think we recovered. All right, so you'll notice here I didn't even hoop all the edge of my fabric there, right? My design is going to go here. And this isn't hooped. This isn't even hooped in the fabric, in the hoop itself. Can you see that? So what could I do for that? What could I do for that? Probably I would sew the basting box just to make sure nothing got caught in there. Something like that. Now, I didn't even hoop this with stabilizer. I forgot to mention that the best thing about quilting in the hoop is I don't need to add any extra stabilizer. The only time I would need to add extra stabilizer is if the edge of the quilt, I'm going to use this one so Dave can see. So if the edge of if I needed to quilt, you know, right here, and pretend I didn't have this much fabric, right, Dave? I trimmed it really, really close because I forgot I was going to do embroidery. I could actually hoop sticky stabilizer, or I could hoop stabilizer and as much of the quilt as I could, and then I could tape this down or use the basting stitch, and that way the edge wouldn't get caught. There's always a way to fix it, even if you, that's the great thing about quilting and sewing, you can correct just about anything. All right, so now that we've had this hoop, Dave, I'm gonna move back over to the machine. We'll take a quick look. I'm not gonna attach it just yet. All right, can you see the screen, Dave?
Yes,
Oh, good, okay. So in your Bernina sewing machine or Bernette 70 series sewing machine, some of my favorites, there are usually some built-in quilting designs for you to try. And you would find them I'll show you where. Let's go back, I'll show you where. So in the sewing and embroidery motifs, and then usually there's a folder that looks like quilting designs, and they're right in there. This is the 700, the B700, an embroidery only machine, and it comes with almost 30 designs, 29 quilting designs. So we could pick just about any design here and use it for quilting. I'm gonna pick number 17. All right, so this one this is a continuous design, so I could do this continuously down my table runner. It would be perfect. I wouldn't want to shrink this design or enlarge this design more than 20% because the stitches are gonna get really, really big or really, really small, and they're not gonna look good. So we're gonna leave it the way it is. I could rotate it if the design wasn't in the right position. I'm just waking up the embroidery module here. But what I really wanted to show you about quilting in the hoop is how are we gonna make the back look as good as the front? I'm gonna show you. So when you get to the beginning of your design, this is when you should bring the needle thread, the bobbin thread, excuse me, from the bottom to the top. Otherwise you might get the nest on the bottom. So what you could do is, my machine here has a needle up down function, and it's right here on the machine. If I press it, it'll do needle down. If I press it again, it'll do needle up, and I can pull up the bobbin thread. Did you see that? So now I have both threads on the top. If I didn't have that function on my machine, what could I do? I could ask Dave if there was a B700 in the warehouse, which I think there is, or I could just use my hand wheel and bring the needle down and bring the needle up and then pull up the thread. Don't have to do anything fancy. You can do this on just about any machine. No need to cry to Dave. He's busy. And then you're ready to go off to the races. So I'm just going to press start, and it's going to quilt for me. Oh, and I should have turned off my cut function, which I did not, but that's okay. We got busy, right, Dave? Yeah, I can trim that. Dave, when are you going to make your first quilt? I don't know where it is. You see my scissors? That's okay. We would just trim that off. I think I was cutting, right? Speed that up. Oh, sorry. Maybe they can't see. Yeah. That's all right. It's just stitching out. So Dave, you might have to up higher in a minute, but just hang on. I'm going to rehoop and see if we can get these to join together. What do you think, Margaret? Do you think I can do that? I bet you I can. All right. So I made the mistake of not turning my thread cutter off. So it cut the threads, but if you like to control your threads, just go into settings and turn your thread cutter off. I'll show you how to do that. I'm finished here, so I'm going to say stop. Let's turn my thread cutter off. That's in settings, embroidery, looking for the scissors, boom. And I can just turn these off so that they don't trim the threads. Great, now I'm in control again. Perfect. All right, let's rehoop this baby. Now I would have printed a template so that I would know where to put the next hooping, but I'm just going to eyeball it today so that we're going to get a rough estimate of this. All right, so I'm going to... I didn't check the back, guys. Look what I did. Can you see on the back what happened? I didn't check the back and I sewed my backing in. I think Dave was trying to get my attention to tell me, but I didn't pay attention. It's been that kind of a day. Actually, I did this on my True Pink quilt too, and I fixed it as well. Right, we're just going to pretend like it never happened, Dave. It's a whole pretend day. We're going to pretend every day. I'm going to put that hoop back there. And, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and it's just how you recover from it. It's never a big problem. It's quilting. It's not a big problem. I think I'm happy with that hooping. It has enough space that I can connect. It's pretty darn straight. Where's my, yep, that's pretty straight. All right. Let's see if I can do it right this time, Dave. I'm a trained professional, apparently. Apparently not. Dave, you know, there's a training session coming up at the end of the month with Bernina International. Clearly, I need to attend. I'm just pushing my inner hoop beyond the outer hoop because I like that it protects the base of my machine. I'm just going to push it down there. There's a term for this. It's in the big book of embroidery. I can't remember what it is. All right, we're going to go back to the machine. Now, this is where it gets a little bit trickier. So I know that I kept this fabric hooped exactly parallel. Look, guys, I got it all out from under there this time. She too can learn. So what I want to do is connect this point on the screen to the point on my quilt. And actually, it's really close. I don't know if Dave can come in closer. Can you come in a little closer, Dave? You might have to lift up a little bit on your... yeah, that's it. Dave's got his mask. He's okay. So sorry about the glare here. Ooh, don't think you can see because of the glare. So the needle is actually 1/4 of an inch away from where it should be. Let me show you. Real tight. Boop, 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 boop. This is why Dave is the camera person and not me. Gosh, that glare. Ah, there we go. All right, can you see that it's 1/4 inch away there? Yeah, Kate's saying like, no, I really can't. But it is 1/4 inch away. There it is. There's my needle. There's the end of the design. So that's not a really good match there. It looks pretty good, but it's not close. So what I would do is go into the editing mode of my the machine and just move it over until the needle is over there. So I'm just going to move. I'm only going to move the X direction because it's vertically it's correct. Just X, it's not. And there actually is a check function on your machine that would help with this too. Or I could use pinpoint placement, but pinpoint placement isn't on every machine. So I'm trying to show you how I would do it without pinpoint placement. Oh, it wants my needle all the way up so I don't break anything. Over a bit, and I'm going to use, now I'm using the other button, the vertical button to bring the design a little bit down. Okay, it's bang on now. My needle is starting right at that start point. Awesome, so I can start my quilting now. I can pull up the thread and I can go back to quilting again. Thanks, Dave, that was great. All right, so what other questions do we have about quilting in the hoop? Oh, I wanted to show you this quilt behind me. There's a Tula pink quilt. I'm just going to switch over the camera. Dave's going to show you this beautiful Tula pink quilt. This was all done in embroidery, and it's a beautiful collection by Tula Pink, and it's available on Embroidery Online and Scissortail, I think. And I used the maxi hoop from the 7 series. I actually quilted it exactly on this machine. I'm going to show you with the jumbo hoop, but here we go. So I quilted it like this, right? 2 blocks at a time. And I used pinpoint placement to get it exactly in the hoop every time. Then I had to rehoop, do 2 more blocks, rehoop and do 2 more blocks, so on and so on and so forth. Did all the blocks, and then I went ahead and did all the sashing and all the borders. It was a lot of fun. I secured it only using 505 spray. I'm sure you all have this. I used 505 spray. My tip for 505 spray is spray it on and use your iron to heat set it. It makes a huge difference. It really secures everything. So make sure you have lots of 505 spray from your Bernina dealer. I use it all the time. Washes out great. That's how we did today's quilt as well. So that's the Tula Pink quilt. So that's one way you can do quilting. And what is the limiting factor for how big a motif you can quilt? Well, it's really your hoop, right? If you have, the larger the hoop, you know, the larger the area that you can quilt. So if I have a maxi or a mega hoop, I can quilt long borders like this. So this motif goes from here all the way to here. And then we used endless embroidery to just keep bringing this down and down the quilt. So this represents a quilt border, how you would do that. And then the larger the hoop you have, the larger the motif you can do. So this is my jumbo hoop. So I can do quite a large block in a jumbo hoop. The B70 series has some great hoops. I just have this medium hoop here, but they have a large hoop. It's actually quite a bit larger than the Bernina large hoop. So lots of different ways you can do in the hoop quilting. Trying to see if I have more samples. I think we did it all, Dave. I think we got through it because we're amazing. I wonder if we have anything else, any questions we can answer. Nope. Everybody loves quilting in the hoop. I really encourage you to give it a try. Let me show you the back of this. So this is a triple stitch, just like the Tula Pink one on the wall. And on the back, look how perfect it looks. Like the stitching is beautiful. The threads have all been trimmed. It looks so great. And it looks like it's been to the long armor, but you did it yourself. You could add more walking foot quilting. You could add free motion quilting after. All of that. Yeah, so that's great. Has anybody done quilting in the hoop? Have you had lots of success? Maybe if you have, you want to throw a picture in the comments sometime. And we made it. We made it through another version of Bernina Canada Live. It sure has been fun to join you and to show you my love of using an embroidery machine to do quilting. I can't wait to show you the next thing we can do with embroidery machines, whenever that is. I will see you guys in 2 weeks. I believe we're talking about the new free motion quilting feet, the number 72 ruler foot. the number 73 micro stippling foot, the number 74, I forgot the name of that foot. It's like the glide cup foot. I think it's the glide foot, Dave. Help me out. Dave's like, I don't use them, I just ship them. And the great thing about those feet is even though they're new feet, we developed them to also fit, we had made two versions, ones to fit our current machines and ones to fit our experienced machines. So if you have an experienced machine like my 817 from 1969 at home, she might be making a guest appearance next time we do Facebook Live. We can fit you with the newest, the latest feet, and you can join in the craze of free motion quilting, the craze of couching, the craze of ruler work. We don't want you to miss any of the crazy quilting we're all doing. So have a great couple of weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks with lots more fun, interesting information, maybe a free project or two. Take care, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Oh, we did.
I think we did good. You did great.
I think we did good.